for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning and welcome to RPtv. Today's Monday, November 1st, 2021. Our top story this morning could be really good news for New Jersey if President Biden gets his spending proposal. Let's go to Callie for the details.
Congress could vote this week on two major spending bills that would spend $1 trillion on infrastructure and has Republican support, and spend $1.75 trillion to fight climate change, increase health coverage, and expand child care, and would be approved only with Democratic votes. For New Jersey, the infrastructure bill has at least $12.3 billion plus accounts to tap for the Gateway Tunnel under the Hudson River. The second bill, the framework of which was announced by President Joe Biden on Thursday, also contains funding for the Garden State, including tax cuts for families and funds to lower the cost of child care and health insurance. The framework, however, does not address the Republican tax law's $10,000 cap on deducting state and local taxes, a provision that disproportionately affected New Jersey and other high-tax states, but several Garden State lawmakers said they expected a provision to be added to the final legislation before it passes Congress. Here are the provisions for New Jersey that are in the Biden proposal. Flood insurance. The proposal would forgive $20.5 billion in debts that the National Flood Insurance Program has accumulated, while also funding new flood maps and helping cover the premium costs for homeowners. Healthcare. An additional 88,000 New Jersey residents would receive health coverage, and another 113,000 would see their premiums drop. Higher education. The proposed legislation would increase the maximum Pell Grant by $550, helping students who receive such help to pay tuition costs. There also is funding for the state's 24 minority-serving institutions. Job training. Federal grants that 18 community colleges in the state can compete for would fund new job training programs in fields such as information technology, health, and clean energy. More tax cuts. As many as 390,000 low-wage workers in New Jersey without children would receive a tax cut of as much as $1,500 by extending the expanded Earned Income Tax Credit. Offshore drilling. The proposal permanently bans oil drilling off the Atlantic and Pacific coast and the eastern Gulf of Mexico. Preschool. On Monday's trip to New Jersey, Biden stopped at the East End Elementary School in North Plainfield to visit some pre-kindergarten classes. The spending plan will allow an additional 145,000 3- and 4-year-olds in the state to attend preschool. School lunches. An additional 177,000 New Jersey students would be eligible for free meals, and 594,000 students would be able to obtain food during the summer months when they're not in school. 1 in 10 New Jersey children do not have enough to eat, the White House said. Wind power. There is $100 million in the U.S. Department of Energy and $600 million for the Maritime Administration to help the development of offshore wind, which the Garden State is already working on. That's part of the Biden administration's effort to combat climate change, which has been blamed for contributing to more intense storms. According to the White House, New Jersey experienced 23 extreme weather events from 2010 to 2020, costing as much as $50 billion in damages.
The New York Jets may have turned the corner on their season with a big and unexpected win over the Cincinnati Bengals. Cooper has that report.
The New York Jets win against the Cincinnati Bengals, 34-31. The Bengals had the lead in their first half with 17 touchdowns to the Jets' 14, but the Jets came in clutch, scoring the same amount as the Bengals in the second inning from the last inning.
Now it's time for announcements. IDs are required starting today. We will not start giving out detentions, but please use your school photo ID to scan in the morning. Art Club and National Art Honor Society meeting every Friday after school at the public library with permission slips. Questions? Ask Ms. Kutro. Spanish and International Club. Meets every other Wednesday. Next meeting date is Wednesday, November 3rd, after school outside by the high school cafeteria. For details, email Ms. Almanzar. Freshman class of 2025. Shirt order forms are due today. Turn all forms into Ms. Sosa, room 106, or Ms. Clausy, room 112. Questions, contact Ms. Sosa or Ms. Clausy. Today we are introducing a special feature. Tell us something we don't know about you. Here's the first installment.
What is something students don't usually know about you?
Believe it or not, there's many individuals that don't realize I am the girls' varsity soccer coach and that I played soccer for the boys team when I was here in high school.
Hi, good morning. Something that students may not know about me is that I like to go running almost every single day after school.
Something that students may not know about me is that my favorite color is yellow.
What is something students don't usually know about you?
Well, one thing that students might not know about me is that I own a farm and I have different animals on the farms. I have cows, I have chickens, I have lambs, and so that's something my students might not know about me.
Students might not know that my socks every day show a work of art.
Probably one of my former jobs before I started teaching, which is I used to work in a cemetery digging graves.
Stay tuned, we'll be right back. Thanks for watching, have a great day, and stay tuned for CNN 10.
Hi, I'm Carl Azus. Thank you so much for watching CNN 10. We've got something a little different for you today. A special edition, an in-depth show, because you really can't go anywhere more in-depth than the Challenger Deep, the deepest point of the world's deepest trench in the world's deepest ocean. We're talking about the Mariana Trench in the Pacific Ocean. National Geographic describes this as a scar in the Earth's crust. It's located about 7 miles beneath the waves. The trench measures more than 1,500 miles long and it's 43 miles wide on average, so we're talking about a pretty big scar overall, and the Challenger Deep is near the southern end of it. It takes a feat of engineering just to get there. It takes hours of diving to hit bottom, and it's largely an unexplored frontier. Even though thousands of people have reached the top of the world on Mount Everest, fewer than 25 have reached the bottom of it in the Challenger Deep. New Zealander Rob McCallum is one of them. On April 8th, he became the first person from his country to go there, and he went along with Tim McDonald, the first person from Australia to complete the feat. They sent us this video and everything else you're about to see. And I had the opportunity to interview Mr. McCallum about the experience not long after he hit rock bottom and then resurfaced in early 2021. Let's dive into the special.
It's the last unexplored frontier on Earth. We know very little about this region, what we call the Hadal Zone, which is that area of the ocean below 6,000 meters or 20,000 feet.
You can't just get there in a normal submarine. What sort of vehicle does it take to withstand the pressures there?
That's a very interesting question because pressure is entirely relative. When a spacecraft goes up into space, they're only experiencing a pressure change of 1 atmosphere between the inside of the spacecraft and the outside. We are dealing with a pressure differential of around 1,100 atmospheres. So we dive in a titanium sphere, which is able to withstand 100,000 tons of pressure. Just on the hatch through which we get into the submarine, just the hatch alone has 2,200 tons, or around 5 fully laden Boeing 747s squishing down on it.
That's incredible. I mean, somebody can't go out and buy that. How does one acquire a vehicle like that?
This vehicle was made for this specific purpose. It was designed and built by Triton Submarines in Florida, specifically to be able to voyage down through 7.5 miles of water column to get to the bottom. And that's why it's got kind of an interesting shape. It looks like a pillow that's on its side, and that's so that it can drop down through the water column very, very quickly.
You said very quickly, how long does it take to get to that depth?
It takes around 4.5 hours to get to the deepest point of the world's ocean. We go down through the water at about 6 feet per second.
And coming back?
We release ballast weight on the bottom to spring us off the bottom and head for the surface. And so it's about a 3.5 hour ride home.
What are you seeing when you get to the ocean floor in the deepest part of it?
This is the most fantastic part of what we're doing. It's true exploration. You know, we never know what we're going to see. Every dive has yielded something fascinating, often something new to science. We are seeing creatures for the first time. We are discovering entire landscapes which were previously unknown.
That's still a full day just in travel time. So how much time does that give you on the ocean's floor?
We try to stay down for 3 to 5 hours on the bottom. You know, it's a big investment of time and energy. It takes the entire team to get this vehicle prepared and get it down. And so we try to use every minute possible on the bottom. Our submersible has 3 viewports, one for each of the occupants, but also one central one that allows us to see down to the sea floor. Now we're also surrounded by very high definition cameras that are all linked to a screen in front of us, and we can look in any direction outside. And that's important because we don't really know where we're going. We're almost always the very first humans that have ever been there. And so although we have a 3-dimensional map that we've made the day before, we need a very good view outside to see what's coming. You know, for humans, we don't really fear what we can't sense. And so when you're in an airliner and you're looking out, you don't naturally think of the wind going past at 500 miles an hour and it's minus 50 out there and there's not enough air to breathe. You just, look, I can see a town or I can see a truck. And the same in the sub. There's no sensation of movement. There's no sensation of sound. You can't hear or feel anything from outside. It's just a very peaceful, relaxing cruise into the unknown. I think that we know so little about the ocean that we barely understand what questions to ask, let alone have the ability to understand the answers. My role and the role of the team that I work with is to simply open the door. This is the first vehicle in all of human history that has the ability to reach the deep ocean in any ocean at any depth at any time. It's akin to the Wright brothers with the first flying machine. This is just the first baby steps.
I know the technology might be a way away from creating a sort of ocean exploration station that can withstand depths like that, but we have reported on there is more funding and investment in underwater exploration stations. I mean, how important would you feel those would be as contrasted with, let's say, the International Space Station?
Both are important, don't get me wrong. I'm not taking a shot at space travel, but space is a vast void, a vacuum that so far has proved to be lifeless. The ocean is nothing like that. The ocean is full of life, right from the surface all the way down to the very, very bottom. I think before we leave home and start exploring the heavens, we should at least explore our own backyard more thoroughly. I think that many of the answers to our collective future are going to be found in the ocean, and some of those in the deep ocean. The answers to how we're going to handle all the carbon in the atmosphere, the answers to the dynamics of our ocean and how we can arrest the decline of the ocean, but also the things that we might discover in terms of valuable compounds for medicines and that sort of thing.
So why do you think there's so much interest in space exploration when we could be exploring what we have right here?
I think it's as simple as when we gaze up at the heavens, we have a sense of wonder. What's out there? What can we find? We always look skyward because we're terrestrial mammals. We look up to the heavens. When we look into the water, we don't really see that much. We see an opaque platform that we can pull fish out of, maybe go for a swim in, but we don't actually go too far down. My dive was about 36,000 feet. Most humans never get below about 300 feet. So there's a long way to go yet.
So it appears we barely scratched the surface, and there are still so many questions in limbo, except how low you can go, because we know from those who've plumbed the depths and helped us both deepen our sea of knowledge and reach new heights of understanding. Today's show takes us to Plano, as in Plano, Texas, where we heard from Plano West Senior High School. If you'd like a shout out to your school, and we know you do, please subscribe and comment at youtube.com/CNN10. I don't personally choose the schools we mention. They're emailed to me daily by someone who only looks on our YouTube site. I'm Carl Azus for CNN.